Hello and welcome to my channel, The Way What Is Truth. Remember to like and subscribe and comment down below. Now, aside from that old Victorian King James Bible which I showed you, which belonged to Audrey Russell, just like this book belongs to Audrey Russell. Now, in case you don't know who she is, she used to be a primary teacher and she was a dear friend of me and my dad. Anyway, aside from that Victorian King James Bible, this is probably my second favourite book that I own, and a lot of it is due to sentimental value because me and my dad were quite emotionally attached to Audrey Russell, okay? And this is another book that is absolutely brimming with character. It was made in 1912, so it's about 111 years of age. So it's got quite a bit of age to it. It's not quite old enough to be from the Victorian period. It is a 20th century book, but nonetheless 111 is quite old. And yes, it's got that lovely old book smell, which I like. And this is another book very similar to that King James Bible, which is absolutely brimming with character. Look, you can see the age on it. There's wear and tear here and there, you know. My dad used to tell me when I was a child and as I was a teenager as well, that if you've got a good book, then you're never on your own. You know, and that always stuck with me. And you could say this about Joan of Arc, because this is most definitely a good book. Now I'm going to open its pages and show you the wear that it has. Let me see. Yeah. And on the bottom corner here, you see, if I don't know how well you can see that label right there, but it says B.H. Blackwell, bookseller, 50 and 51 Broad Street, Oxford. Now, I love little details like that, okay? So, and then here, look, just so you can see, yeah? It says on top, Uniform Library Edition of Mark Twain's works. Right. And then it goes on to say, the choice works of Mark Twain revised and arranged by the author with life portraits and numerous illustrations. And here we go. There's a picture, there is a depiction of Joan of Arc being burned at the stake, because of course that's how she died. She was born in the early 15th century. Okay, and of course she led the French to victory in the 100 Years' War against the English, and she got her inspiration to do it from Jesus himself. And apparently there was even rumours that she saw a cross in the sky, you know, like a vision that she had. Before I go any further, definitely comment down below. If you know any more about Joan of Arc than me, if you are an expert on the Joan of Arc, then definitely fill me in down below. Tell me whatever you know about it. But yes, this is a depiction of her, look here. You see, it's quite something. Now just take that in. Yeah, it's quite something, isn't it? She was most definitely a remarkable individual and completely and utterly unique. Now it says on the page after that, Personal Recollections of Joan of Arc by the Sir Louis de Conte, her page and secretary, freely translated out of the ancient French into modern English from the original unpublished manuscript in the National Archives of France by Jean-Francois Alden, by Mark Twain, in brackets, Samuel L. Clemens, okay? And then below that it says London, Chatto and Windus, so that's the edition, the London, Chatto and Windus, 1912. And then it simply says on the next page, copyright 1896 by Harper and Brothers, New York, USA, all rights reserved. And on the next page, it says here, to my wife, Olivia Langdon Clemens, this book is tendered in our wedding anniversary in grateful recognition of her 25 years of valued service as my literary advisor and editor, the author, 1870 to 1895. Okay. Now, there's a foreword here written by a chap called Louis Kossuth. Consider this unique and imposing distinction. Since the writing of human history began, Joan of Arc is the only person of either sex who has ever held supreme command of the military forces of a nation at the age of 17. Now, just take a while for that to sink in, yeah? It's something that I can't fully comprehend. It just goes whoosh right over my head, okay? It's quite something. It's quite something. It's absolutely remarkable. And what I'm going to do is read the preface of this book and show you a few of the pages later on so you've got a better feel for the book, because I absolutely love old books. We have little tears, we have little marks, sometimes we have little notes scribbled down, and then there's that old book smell, which I absolutely love and adore as well. Anyway, translator's preface. To arrive at a just estimate of a renowned man's character, one must judge it by the standards of his time, not ours. Judged by the standards of one century, the noblest of characters of an earlier one lose much of their lustre. Judged by the standards of today, there is probably no illustrious man of 4 or 5 centuries ago whose character could meet the test at all points. But the character of Joan of Arc is unique. It can be measured by the standards of all times without misgiving or apprehension as to the result. Judged by any of them, judged by all of them, it is still flawless. It is still ideally perfect. It still occupies the loftiest place possible to human attainment, a loftier one that has been reached by any other mere mortal. Now this, just by reading that alone, you can tell that Joan was a very special individual indeed. And these people do not come along every day. When we reflect that her century was the brutalist, the wickedest, the rottenest in history since the darkest ages, we are lost in wonder at the miracle of such a product from such a soil. Now, the 15th century was coming towards the end of the Middle Ages. I know a bit about the Middle Ages of this country, England, but I know precious little about the Middle Ages of France, so definitely tell me down below if you know anything about the Joan of Arc and also the 15th century of France, whether you know things about its political situation or its armies, its soldiers, its society, its way of life, its laws, and so on and so forth, and certainly anything pertaining to this book. I'd love to hear from you about it. Right, so the contrast between her and her century is the contrast between day and night. She was truthful when lying was the common speech of men. She was honest when honesty was become a lost virtue. She was a keeper of promises when the keeping of a promise was expected of no one. She gave her great mind to great thoughts and great purposes when other great minds wasted themselves upon pretty fancies or upon poor ambitions. She was modest and fine and delicate when to be loud and coarse might be said to be universal. She was full of pity when a merciless cruelty was the rule. She was steadfast when stability was unknown and honourable in an age which had forgotten what honour was. She was a rock of convictions in a time when men believed in nothing and scoffed at all things. Now, how well does that describe the world of today as well? Especially when I read that part here. She was a rock of convictions in a time when men believed in nothing and scoffed at all things. How well does that describe so many people today, both men and women? She was unfailingly true in an age that was false to the core. She maintained her personal dignity unimpaired in an age of fawnings and civilities. She was of a dauntless courage when hope and courage had perished in the hearts of her nation. She was spotlessly pure in mind and body when society in the highest places was foul in both. She was all these things in an age when crime was the common business of lords and princes, and when the highest personages in Christendom were able to astonish even that infamous era and make it stand aghast at the spectacle of their atrocious lives, black with unimaginable treacheries, butcheries and bestialities. What language is being used here, and I absolutely love it. She was perhaps the only entirely unselfish person whose name has a place in profane history. No vestige or suggestion of self-seeking can be found in any word or deed of hers. When she had rescued her king from his vagabondage and set his crown upon his head, she was offered rewards and honours, but she refused them all and would take nothing. All she would take for herself, if the king would grant it, was leave to go back to her village home and tend her sheep again and feel her mother's arms about her and be her housemaid and helper. Okay, so we're talking about a person who obviously is not perfect, but what the author, what this guy's trying to say is that she was as close as to perfect a character as what you can get. Certainly quite a wholesome individual, most definitely someone who God loved very, very much, and of course is with God right now. The selfishness of this unspoiled general or victorious armies, companion of princes and idol of an applauding and grateful nation, reach but that far and no farther. The work wrought by Joan of Arc may fairly be regarded as ranking with any recorded in history when one considers the conditions under which it was undertaken, the obstacles in the way, and the means at her disposal. Caesar carried conquest far, but he did it with the trained and confident veterans of Rome, and was a trained soldier himself. In fact, Caesar was from a noble family. Okay, and he's got the reputation as being the most ambitious Roman emperor ever. Okay, and Napoleon swept away the disciplined armies of Europe, but he also was a trained soldier, and he began his work with patriot battalions inflamed and inspired by the miracle-working new breath of liberty breathed upon them by the revolution, eager young apprentices to the splendid trade of war, not old and broken men at arms, despairing survivors of an age-long accumulation of monotonous defeats. But Joan of Arc, a mere child in years, ignorant, unlettered, a poor village girl, unknown and without influence, found a great nation lying in chains, helpless and hopeless under an alien domination, its treasury bankrupt, its soldiers disheartened and dispersed, all spirit torpid, all courage dead in the hearts of the people through long years of foreign and domestic outrage and oppression, their king coward, resigned to its fate and preparing to fly the country. And she laid her hand upon this nation, this corpse, and it rose and followed her. She led it from victory to victory. She turned back the tide of the 100 Years' War. Wow, if you know anything about the 100 Years' War, then definitely tell me down below, because I'd be very much interested in learning more about it. She fatally crippled the English power and died with the earned title of Deliverer of France, which she bears to this day. Now, how's that for a legacy? And for all reward, the French king whom she had crowned stood supine and indifferent while French priests took the noble child, the most innocent, the most lovely, the most adorable the ages have produced, and burned her alive at the stake. How tragic that must have been. Now, on this page here, I'm going to read out what is written right there, you see, yeah? The peculiarity of Joan of Arc's history, the details of the life of Joan of Arc from a biography which is unique among the world's biographies in one respect. It is the only story of a human life which comes to us under oath. Now, isn't that special? The only one which comes to us from the witness stand, the official records of the Great Trial of 1431 and of the process of rehabilitation of a quarter of a century later are still preserved in the National Archives of France, and they furnish with remarkable fullness the facts of her life. The history of no other life of that remote time is known with either the certainty or the comprehensiveness that attaches to hers. Okay. The Sir Louis de Conte is faithful to her official history in his personal recollections, and thus far his trustworthiness is unimpeachable, but his mass of added particulars must depend for credit upon his own word alone. Okay, the translator. Now what I'm going to do, let me see how long, what I'm going to do is just read the first part of chapter 1. Okay, just to give you an idea, to give you a feel of this book. Okay, so Personal Recollections of Joan of Arc, Book 1. The Sir Louis de Conte to his great-great-grandnephews and nieces. Chapter 1. This is the year 1492. I'm 82 years of age. The things I'm going to tell you about are things which I saw myself as a child and as a youth. In all the tales and songs and historians of Joan of Arc, which you and the rest of the world read and sing and study in the books wrought in the late invented art of printing, mention is made of me. the Sir Louis de Conte. I was her page and secretary. I was with her from the beginning until the end. Okay. I was reared in the same village with her. I played with her every day when we were little children together, just as you play with your mates. Now that we perceive how great she was, now that her name fills the whole world, it seems strange that what I'm saying is true. For it is as if a perishable paltry candle should speak of the eternal sun riding in the heavens and say he was gossip and housemate to me when we were candles together. So that gives you an idea of the magnitude of respect that he had for her and how high his opinion of her was. And yes, it is true, just as I say, I was her playmate and I fought at her side in the wars. To this day I carry in my mind fine and clear the picture of that dear little figure with breast bent to the flying horse's neck, charging at the head of the armies of France, her hair streaming back, her silver mail ploughing steadily deeper and deeper into the thick of the battle, sometimes nearly drowned from sight by tossing heads of horses, uplifted sword arms, wind-blown plumes and intercepting shields. I was with her to the end, and when that black day came, whose accusing shadow will always lie upon the memory of the mitred French slaves of England who were her assassins, and upon France who stood idle and essayed no rescue, my hand was the last she touched in life. As the years and the decades drifted by, and the spectacle of the marvellous child's meteor flight across the war further into France and its extinction in the smoke clouds of the state receded deeper and deeper into the past and grew ever more strange and wonderful and divine and pathetic, I came to comprehend and recognise her at last for what she was, the most noble life that was ever born into this world save only one, and it must mean Jesus, of course. So wow, yeah. Let me just read to you a little bit of chapter 2. Yeah, I, the Sir Louis de Conte, was born in Neufchâteau, the 6th of January 1410. That is to say, exactly 2 years before Joan of Arc was born in Domremy. I think that's how you pronounce it, Domremy. Anyway, I'm going to stop reading it now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Yeah, this book is absolutely brimming with character, and I'm very much looking forward to reading it. I'm reading about the medieval times. I've got 2 books on the 14th century England at the moment that I'm reading through, yeah? So, yeah, you can see the age of this book. You can tell it's 111 years of age. Just all that crinkly yellow paper. Right, so... And that's all there is to show, really. See, it's got some signs of wear in the middle, which is typical of books of this age. Now, I haven't needed to actually buy this one. I did a little bit of a repair job with my King James Bible from the Victorian age. But yes, I'm very much looking forward to reading this one, yes. Yeah, like I said earlier on, if you know anything about France in the 15th century and about the life of Joan of Arc, okay, then definitely tell me down below. Here's a picture, look, the examination of Joan of Arc, look there, you see, so it's got illustrations on the inside of it, which are quite neat, to help give the reader a better understanding of what was going on. So, yeah, I hope and pray that you've enjoyed this video. As usual, feel free to chat to me about anything down below. If you want to talk about anything, even something that's not related to this video, then feel free to do so. If there's anything you want me to pray about, then tell me. Anything you want to talk about, then tell me. Bye-bye and take care.